Kyle Wiens at iFixit has the saying, which is, if you can't fix it, you don't own it. And, there's a lot of arguing that can be done back and forth there, but I get where he's coming from. Now you have maybe a modification of that, which is, if you cannot work on your own property, is it your property? And there's a decent argument to be made that maybe it isn't. Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely Friday morning. I'm coming to you live from this Framework laptop webcam to discuss a story that has been filling up my inbox all week that I have not had time to get to because I've been away. So this story is about a gentleman who is being fined over $500,000 because he was fixing cars in his backyard. And a lot of people have been asking me, do you think somebody should be getting fined over $500,000 because they were fixing a car in their backyard? I want to go through the specific details of the story and what it is we can see from the 6 pages that were released from the court and from the judge. Now, to be clear, it is going to be very, very difficult for me to separate the facts of this case from me interjecting my obvious bias, and I'll try to make it obvious when I'm doing so. I think myself and the people who watch this channel have a very pro-freedom, pro-repair, anti-bureaucracy, anti-petty, hall monitor, code enforcement kind of thing bias and lens through which we view the world, and I most certainly have that. So that's going to be shining through here crystal clear. I'm just putting that out there up front. So this is from the Sacramento Bee, and it says the court upholds a $573,000 penalty against an East Sacramento homeowner who worked on cars in his yard. And of course, this would be happening in effing California. And you can see the gentleman here. He is clearly in his 80s, and he is calling this institutionalized elder abuse. So let's just go through, starting with something from the court case. So it says, the defendant owned residential property in Sacramento, which he maintained in a manner that created a severe public nuisance. In 2014, the city began enforcement efforts to require the defendant to remedy multiple code violations, but the defendant did not take the necessary actions. Instead, the defendant insisted that the city cease its code enforcement activities. So one thing to be clear of here is that it wasn't like he was just changing his oil in a car in his backyard and they walked by and they said, yo, we want $500,000. They asked him to stop what he was doing, and he kept doing it for a prolonged period of time. Now, Dan does claim that he removed everything from the backyard and they were still fining him. He also says that it took a decent amount of time for him to remove everything, which is obviously to be expected since this guy is in his late 80s. Now, one thing that mattered to me was, is this something where the house was disgusting and everybody in the neighborhood thought this is horrible? Or is this something where you had just one person from the city going door to door just to try and drum up revenue for the city? And it does appear that a neighbor complained. I'm not saying this makes it better, I'm just saying it helps me understand it. It says here, a neighbor complained and the city cited him, claiming all the vehicles appear to be inoperable. Again, I don't see where it is the neighbor's business whether or not the vehicles or the stuff that you have in your backyard is or isn't operable. That's just not your effing business. Stay in your lane, stay on your side of the fence. Me personally, again, unless there is a steaming pile of shit that smells horrible that is going all the way to the roof of your house, unless you have a bunch of loaded armed machine guns with the safety off right next to a bunch of 4-year-old kids that are looking at them like they want to play with them, like unless that's happening, it really is not your business what is going on in the backyard of your neighbor, in my opinion. It also issued violations for other backyard items: car parts, generators, propane tanks, and fruit that had fallen off his orange and grapefruit trees. So his neighbor complains about what's in his backyard. This dude lived there since 1952, and something tells me, I'm just going to take a wild guess, that the Karen that's complaining about this is not somebody that's been in that neighborhood since 1952. So if we continue on to this, it says that the trial court imposed the minimum of $250 per day fine and penalty. Further, Sacramento City Code Section 8.100.170, Subdivision A, provides that the same civil penalties for violations of the housing code. The trial court again imposed the minimum $250 per day. So to be clear, this is something that went on for a very, very, very long period of time, and of the amount of money that they could bill him, they did bill him the minimum. I still think the right thing to do, again, my opinion, not the facts, would be for them to say, mind your effing business, leave your neighbor alone, and throw this out. But if they are going to consider the case according to the law in Sacramento and in California, they could have fined him way more. Again, it's not like they just said, oh, you're fixing a car, we're going to fine you $500,000. It was a certain amount of money per day, and they fined him that amount per day. I'm not saying it's right, it just makes it a little easier to understand what's going on. Now, The gentleman cited a 2000 San Francisco case in which courts ruled a $663,000 fee for ongoing violations was not constitutionally excessive as precedent, which again I think is insane. He is citing the Eighth Amendment, saying that this is a cruel and unusual punishment, this is excessive, and they're saying that there was a court that ruled a $663,000 fee was not excessive, and something tells me that in that case, I'm just going to take a wild guess that we weren't talking about some dude bitching about his neighbor fixing a car in his backyard. Now, it does appear that this gentleman is representing himself, which is not exactly the best idea when the city or state government is trying to fuck you over for $500,000, which, trust me, fortunately I do have experience with at this point, but it is understandable that if you are an elderly gentleman and you're not running a for-profit business with 12 employees, that you may not have the $400 to $1,200 an hour to hire an attorney to defend you when stuff like this comes up. They're going over his claim that under the Eighth Amendment that this is constitutional excessiveness, this is a cruel, unusual punishment. It says that the defendant's problem with raising a constitutional excessiveness claim on appeal is that he did not provide the trial court an opportunity to conduct an excessiveness inquiry or make factual findings. Yeah, I'm going to take a wild guess that an elderly dude in his 80s that doesn't have a law degree probably doesn't know all of the specific ways to go about dealing with the court system to give you an opportunity to do that. Further, again, 99% of normal, sane people in America with functioning brains are going to look at that and go, you know what? I don't think we need to conduct an excessiveness inquiry. This dude is fixing cars in his backyard. A neighbor bitched, and you're trying to fine him for over $500,000. That's over $500,000 because he's got a Karen of a neighbor that's whining that he's fixing cars in the backyard of his own fucking property that he paid for, that he's lived in for 70 years. You don't need an excessiveness inquiry. You don't need the city of Sacramento or the state of California to dedicate manpower, money, or resources to conducting an excessiveness inquiry. What you need is something that both the city of New York and the state of California lack, which is common fucking sense to realize that. Now, they say that the defendant makes several unfounded and unsupported accusations against the city and the trial court. Contending reversal is therefore necessary. He asserts that the default judgment is a miscarriage of justice and shocks the judicial conscience. I think most people here would agree. He claims the city's code enforcement merely serves to provide revenue for the city. I think 99% of my subscribers would agree, including the people that watch videos like this. New York City doesn't understand their own laws, where I talk about how for literally at this point, over 1 year, I have not gotten the city of New York to explain to me how to be in compliance with their own rules and regulations. Email the head of the DCA, email my local politician, email the chancellor. I've left emails, voicemails, showed up in person, certified mail letters. I haven't heard a damn thing. People say that I always reference this. Why do you always go back to that? It was one of the few where I was actually smart enough to record the experience. Because all the other times this has happened, I didn't. And there are many city and state governments that just see small businesses or the elderly or people that are going about their business without bothering people as just cows to constantly be milked. So he said, he asserts the default judgment is a miscarriage of justice, and he claims the city's code enforcement merely serves to provide revenue for the city. Are you saying that's not true? I mean, come on. He argues the city has engaged in predatory action for unjust enrichment. Again, can you argue with them? The dude is fixing cars in his backyard. There's dropped fruit. You have a propane tank and tools, and they're asking for over $500,000. And the person writing this for the court is making it sound like that's an outrageous claim. It is not. And he concludes that the trial court is complicit in all the city's wrongdoing. Again, obviously true. Good luck winning in court with this, especially. But again, in my opinion, true. Defendant's accusations are unfounded because he fails to cite evidence in the record to support them. The fact that you are trying to fine an elderly fucking man fixing cars in his backyard over $500,000 and take his house away. What more evidence do you fucking need? Are you kidding me? Why does anybody live in Anyway. The city of Sacramento remains open to working with Mr. Alstad and to resolving this issue in a fair and just way, the city blog post said. No, you don't, because if you were, you would tell his neighbor to shut the fuck up, mind their goddamn business, leave this man alone, and give him his $500 slap on the wrist and move on with life. Or dare I say it, just let him do what he's fucking doing in his backyard. He's fixing cars and things that he inherited. What is so wrong with that? Again, Kyle Wiens at iFixit has the saying, which is, if you can't fix it, you don't own it. And, there's a lot of arguing that can be done back and forth there, but I get where he's coming from. Now you have maybe a modification of that, which is, if you cannot work on your own property, is it your property? And there's a decent argument to be made that maybe it isn't. I get it if people say, listen, I don't want a heroin den being run next door. I don't want like a bunch of crackheads lining up and getting wasted and screaming and shooting out the window or whatever the hell. I can at least I can understand that. The dude is fixing a car in his backyard. I want you to think of the type, because everybody's had that type of neighbor in the past at some point in their life, whether it's a house, a condo, or an apartment. I want you to imagine the kind of person that's going to complain because you're working on a car in your backyard. Now, in the article, it does say that from the front of the place, it really didn't look that bad. It wasn't like, but that he had a lot of stuff in his backyard. Because I was really curious here, was this a case where, again, his front yard looked like absolute garbage, but it said, he had an old van in his fenced backyard where he worked on it on the grass, code violation, and he said that here it goes. It looks neat and tidy from the street. It has a painted white with blue trim. The fenced backyard is now mostly empty with the exception of a patio set. He keeps a few operable vehicles in the driveway. So like again, it's not even like when you drive by, the property values are going to be low because his front lawn looks like shit. The gentleman kept the front of his house looking neat and tidy. I really do wish we could see pictures from that point in time because it may add context. Maybe if you see a picture of what the backyard looked like at that point in time, maybe it's something that's just so unconscionable to the eye that you could understand the need to have a $500,000 plus fine levied against this individual. And I'm open to the fact, to admitting that maybe my opinion would change if I got to see a picture. But I can't see a picture. I can only go based on my own experience, what I think happened, what I read, and what I see. And what I see is a court that is saying that it is an unfounded and unsupported accusation that the city's code enforcement merely serves to provide revenue for the city, and that it's an unfounded and unsupported accusation that it is a miscarriage of justice to fine an elderly man that's lived in this place for 70 years $500,000 because he's fixing vehicles in the backyard of his home and because he has fruit that fell from a tree. Good job, California. Good job. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye now. Oh, by the way, I was going to do a meetup in this area. I didn't know where it would be a good idea to do it, so I asked on my community page, and I said the most upvoted post is going to be the place I do it, and somebody said several miles to the east out in the ocean, which ha, so I'm not going to be doing any meetup tonight because, I was kind of hoping to rely on you to kind of pick a place, and you decided to troll. So maybe I'll wind up doing one on Saturday or Sunday. We'll see. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.